This is the Be the Solution podcast. And this morning I am here with Jennifer Lynn Robinson. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
I wanted to be in a business that I did not have a ceiling. Take a pen and a piece of paper, draw a line, draw another line next to it. At 365 days, if you drew 365 lines, you started here with one line, but look how far you've come.
Hi, Jennifer. Oh, thank you so much. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So, Jennifer, Purposeful Networking. I love the name of your company.
Thank you.
Because networking can be so sometimes just worthless, meaning people don't know what to do with it.
Right.
They go, I went to an event last night, Jennifer. We'll start with this.
Okay.
Here we go. I went.
Oh, you got your card.
I have 3 cards and other people that on the phone that we connected with.
Okay.
So generally, here's what happens, right? With most people, nothing.
Right. Do you say that for yourself or for most people you know? Are you good at
No.
follow-up?
How many cards do you give out, Jennifer, or exchange numbers that you never hear from anybody?
Right. Well, here's the rule number 1. If you know you want to reach out to somebody, it's important that you got to meet them and you want to connect with them. You always have to capture their information. Never rely on them to follow up with you.
Exactly. So I will follow up, but sometimes even getting through the craziness of every day and having to do, whatever business is your regular business and you're following up for new things, but it escapes people.
Absolutely. It's funny because I did a seminar yesterday on this very topic. The whole seminar was on networking follow-up. And if you look online and you look at kind of the statistics, somewhere between at the most 20% and at the least 5% of people actually follow up from networking. Like once you get those cards or you meet somebody at an event, maybe you'll send the LinkedIn request, but most people will do nothing.
So 5% to 20%.
Correct.
Maximum.
Yes.
So what advice do you give people in order to not waste the time? Because that's what you call purposeful networking, right? So I was there for about an hour and a half,
right?
Which you could always be doing something else in that hour and a half, like your business or whatever.
Sure.
And so how do we make sure that this gets done?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to anything else. I mean, I think people don't like this answer, but you have to prioritize it. The biggest excuses people give is I don't have the time to follow up, or too much time's passed. I don't know what to say. It's awkward. And all of those things are justified. But I mean, like anything else in your life, when you say I don't have time to exercise, or I don't have time to write a book, or whatever it is, and I say those things. That's why I'm using this as an example. But you have time for what you make time for. So I think it's figuring out how to prioritize it, put it on your schedule as a non-negotiable, so that the times that you're busy, it's already there. Like you have it blocked. Maybe you're somebody who wants to do it right after the event where things are fresh in your mind. So maybe like the half hour you get back from an event, or if it's a virtual event afterwards, you're doing the follow-up then. If you're not that person, that's fine. Maybe it's, Friday afternoons when you're not busy, you take an hour for follow-up or whatever it is, but incorporating it in your calendar so that those weeks where it's crazy, it's still a non-negotiable. It's still in your calendar. It's not going to slip through the cracks. And then I think also people get upset at themselves, like the cards that you just held up every once in a while. And I'm sure this happens to you too, because I know you do a lot of networking. I'll clean out my purse for the first time in a month, and I'll think I went through all the cards after events, and I'll find somebody's card in the bottom, somebody I really wanted to connect with. And I'll think, oh no, a month has passed. What am I going to do? So a lot of people will see that and say, it's too late. I can't follow up, but you can always follow up. Obviously, if you can follow up in the first 1 to 3 days, I think that's the best. And the reason I say that is because people are more apt to remember your conversation and something personal. If you can follow up with something personal, something that you discussed, when you talk to them, travel, pets, kids, whatever it was, and you can remind them of that, they'll have sort of that warm and fuzzy feeling of wanting to talk to you again and remembering the nice conversation. I think the further you get from that, it's harder because you may not remember, what you talked about. They may not remember you. There might be a bunch of events in between. It doesn't mean you shouldn't follow up at all, but it does get harder.
And so I always follow up usually. And anyway, this is the way I've done it is I send an email.
Yeah.
and I add them to my database
Okay.
CRM. And so they will get my videos about, well, life, aspirational, inspirational, and some I sprinkle in some real estate stuff in there, like market updates and things like that. So hopefully they get into the database. That's the plan.
Okay.
That's the plan. And they get the email. And I always like to try to connect on something that we did speak about that you just said. And sometimes I just say, hey, here's my info.
Yeah.
Right now I know you're not in the market for whatever it is. It could be for, speaking with an agent or speaking with a potential customer or a vendor. It's a lot of vendors too. I meet at
Sure.
events, right? So here's my info. Maybe we can work together in the future for your photography services or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, I think, I like to talk to people about prioritizing the people they meet. So, you've been in business a long time. I know, I've been in business about 10 years. And I know at the beginning, I would take every meeting, I would follow up with everyone. Everyone would get the same level of care and service. And, there are those people out there that will say, well, you should always do that because you never know, somebody you don't think is going to be, worthwhile is going to be a great opportunity or open a door. And in theory, that's true. But in reality, we just only have so much time in the day. So I think when you go to events, you should look at the contacts that you brought back with you, like the business cards, and think about, who you either made a great personal connection with or would be a potential great business connection. And those should get kind of like your top tier follow-up. And when I say top tier follow-up, I mean like scheduling a one-on-one, either in person or, via Zoom or something, or a virtual stream like this, where you're really trying to get to know the person, as opposed to just, what you said at the beginning, which was I try to, connect with them, send them a quick email or put them in my database. That's all good, but maybe there's a top tier of people, not all the people you meet, but some of the people you meet that get a higher level of prioritization and time.
Absolutely. So those people that I think we could do business with now, let's set a meeting, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Set a meeting, which, I would say, Jennifer, there is some, a little bit of a disconnect right now. I think that we're still not 100% there where we were prior to the last couple of years of, shall I dare say the P word?
Right.
And so I think there is a cadence to get back into networking purposefully.
We are all kind of rusty, all of us, myself included, with the networking. Everything that came natural is a little awkward right now. We're all easing back into it. So, we ourselves shouldn't feel bad, and nobody out there should feel bad, because we're all in the same boat. We've all gotten used to this virtual space, and, there's just kind of a lot more to in person. It takes a lot more energy. I think it's a lot more, personally, I feel like it's a lot more rewarding in person, to see people face to face and the body language and really connect. But, it also takes a lot more energy, and we are all rusty at it. So we're all getting back into it together.
Yeah. I hope to see by next year, this time, that things are just rocking and rolling.
Yes.
Back
We're all
to where we
hoping
were.
that. We're hoping that monkeypox isn't going to be a thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm ignoring that.
Right.
That.
Let's move on.
Blissfully ignoring.
Yes.
So, Jennifer, I'd like to unpack how did you get into the industry? What was your journey? Where did it start?
Yeah. So I never had any plans to be an entrepreneur or a speaker or a consultant or basically anything I'm doing now. From the time I was little, my dad was a trial lawyer. I wanted to be a trial lawyer, and I became a trial lawyer, and I was good at it and I loved it. And then unfortunately I had a near-death accident, and I had very serious physical injuries and also mental injuries, including a traumatic brain injury. So because of that, I was kind of forced out of my job at the time, not by my company, just because of my injuries and what was going on. I had problems finding words. I couldn't find the right words to say. I couldn't think on my feet to do things like cross-examinations and depositions. I just couldn't keep the information in, couldn't memorize my files. I couldn't sit in rooms with, a lot of fluorescent light or competing conversations. It was just a lot of issues I was having. I tried to go back part-time to more of a desk job in the law space. And I was really unhappy. I was already depressed and had a lot of issues because of the accident I was in. And I'm a people person. So for me, the only reason I went to law school was to be in front of, hearings and judges and juries and interact with people. And that's where I really gained my joy and my energy. So when I couldn't do that anymore, I decided this was kind of time to start anew and essentially had to reinvent myself. So I started a business. And initially the business was consulting. I wanted to go into speaking, but at the time, because of everything I just told you, I really wasn't in a position to do public speaking. In fact, I was being told at rehab that I should reconsider a career in public speaking. Not that it was impossible, but just so it would be very, very difficult for me and I should reconsider it. So that was very hard to hear because I love speaking. I love being in front of audiences. I love it.
Well, Jennifer, that in itself is very unusual because most people are like, I hate speaking. I hate being in front of audience. So you're
Yes.
probably like maybe 1% of the population.
I know how odd I sound. I'm one of those people. I love public speaking. Most people hate it. I love networking. Most people hate it. But yeah, I love speaking. So, it was a very dark time for me, kind of obviously going through surgeries and recovery and all kinds of treatment. And then, kind of recognizing that this may not be a possibility for me anymore. But of course, even though that's what I was being told in my head, I was like, that's not true. I'm going to make this work. So like I said, I started a business consulting with my goal being as my conditions improved, I would start trying to move it into more of a public speaking business. And I would say until the pandemic, I did a pretty good job of that. I would say at the time the pandemic happened, my business was probably about 75% public speaking and training and about 25% consulting. And then of course, like everybody else, everything was in uproar because the country shut down. I ended up losing a lot of business initially because, of course, all conferences canceled, companies weren't bringing people in. It wasn't really the time where people started really recognizing that there was a value in all of the virtual stuff and paying people for that. I think initially there just was an uncertainty of what was going on. People were panicked. And so everything just canceled. I just kept getting notice, we're canceling this conference. It wasn't like we were going to reschedule, we're going to move it online. So it was tough because I built my business to a good point, and to watch a lot of it go downhill like that, all the money and all the time. And, I had some really exciting things that I had wanted to get, like a level of speaking I wanted to get to, and kind of to watch that all go away temporarily was tough. But, here we are a few years later and I've managed to build it back up. So I'm very happy.
Oh, that's through perseverance, grit, and
Yes.
having, that don't quit attitude, because you could have sat back when you were diagnosed with all those things that happened in your accident. How long has it been now? Is it 10
It's
years?
been a while. It was 2008 that happened.
Okay.
So,
So
what are we at?
14 years.
14 years. Yeah. And some days that seems like an eternity. Some days it only seems like a few years ago. And believe it or not, I am still dealing with, I know people are probably watching them. Well, she seems like she's doing great. And I am doing great compared to where I was. But, there are still things physically and mentally that are not the same, will never be the same. And I've just learned, how to compensate for them. And some days are a lot easier than others. And sometimes there's things I want to do and it's just too taxing on me. And I just have to recognize that things are not what they were before the accident. But you do, that's part of the reason you go to, rehabilitation when things like that happen, because you learn strategies.
You learn strategies, right? And then you're able to take them and transpose them into your new career. So how did you decide though on this purposeful networking?
So actually I didn't. When I started the consulting business, I was doing more nonprofit event kind of fundraising, consulting, and I was involved with a women's organization. And one of my friends, let me backtrack. As I was building the business that first year, like I said at the beginning, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, no idea how to run a business. So I was just out there, every organization, every event, every meeting, I was really trying to build a network, and I did a really good job of it very quickly. So one of my friends who was in this organization with me, she said, why aren't you teaching people networking? And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you're so good at it and you built this big network really fast and people are coming to you for advice anyway. You might as well get paid for it. Why aren't you focusing on teaching people networking? And it really never occurred to me, that it was even a thing that I could get paid for and I could pursue. So I ended up sort of pivoting the business in the first year and focusing really on networking. And now it's grown into more strategic networking, communications, workplace relations. And then, as I did a TEDx talk really about sort of more of the personal journey that I just talked about. And so now I do a lot of talks that are more motivational on change, disruption, resilience, leadership. And of course, in the last few years, that's been a big topic that's been, something that corporations and conferences and everybody really wants to hear, because we're all trying to figure out how to move on from having our lives turned upside down.
Yeah, definitely trying to move on from that. But tell me, getting a TEDx talk is kind of a big deal. It's not like you just wake up and like, okay, I want to be TEDx talk. How did that happen? What did you do for that to happen?
So, going back to what I said about, you may want to reconsider a career in public speaking. I kind of told myself at that point, I have a bigger message. I will go back to public speaking. And kind of the epitome in my own mind at that point was, not only am I going to go back to it, but I'm going to be on a TEDx stage. And I would just start to, like, I love visualizing things. You got to visualize yourself,
Yes.
reaching the goal that you want. So, I would just visualize myself. I'm on the stage. I got the red TEDx logo behind me. I have the audience. I'm sharing my message, like everything that I wanted to happen. And then I treat, some of my friends that have done TEDx talks, they've applied the first time and they've gotten it, or maybe the second or third time they've gotten it. I tried for about 5 years. I applied to various TEDx's all across the country until I got it. And it was right before the pandemic. It was December of 2019. And I was supposed to deliver it live the week the country shut down at the University of Arkansas. So that was sort of such a blow to me because, and it's a lesson, because looking back on it now that it's almost 2 years ago, it's no less meaningful that I was able to do the TEDx talk. I ended up taping it here in Philly in an empty studio during lockdown. At the time, it was like very sad for me because I had had all these years of wanting to get the talk, and then the visualization of that, like, engagement with the audience and like the whole stage experience. And I didn't have any of that, but it didn't make the talk any less, real or impactful. So, it's a lesson that I've had to tell myself again and again about, you try to reach your goals. And even when you reach them, you may reach them in a way or during a time frame that you didn't anticipate. It may take longer. You may not reach it in the way that you had intended, but it doesn't make it any less, special that you attained it. Now I just want to make sure I'm talking and I don't see your face anymore. Are you still here? Hello? All right. Well, we'll wait for you to get back on. Don't we love technology? All right, now I'm by myself. This is interesting. I'm sure she will get back on. There she is.
Technology.
Yes, I was saying, don't you love technology? I'm like, I'm talking, but I don't see your face anymore. Are you still here?
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
When it works. So here's where we left off, Jennifer. You were telling me about the TEDx. I actually remember you posting on social about it. And I followed you on social for years. So I know a lot about your journey from social media. Isn't it interesting how we can know and learn so much about somebody? But I remember you talking, you're very vocal on social about what's going on in your life.
Yes.
But I remember you very, very disappointed about not being able to go to Arkansas. And I remember it was like right at pandemic, like the week of like March 13th or something. And you were able to do that talk anyway and record it here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I was saying when we lost connection, I think it was a good lesson for me, and it's a good lesson for listeners that it may take you a lot longer than you think it's going to reach your goal, which it did. And I didn't reach it in the way I had hoped. Like all of the visualization I had done, I didn't get, the big stage experience and the audience and all that, but I still did a TEDx talk and nobody can take that from me. You know what I mean? So ultimately,
nobody,
what it is.
Nobody can take that from you.
Yeah.
So, 5 years, you tried for 5 years.
Yes.
To get a talk.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't hear your talk, but I'm going to back up for a second, but 5 years. No, people don't do that. They don't try for 5 years to get a 10x talk. They're like, they apply once, twice, 3 times maybe. And then they're like, they don't
Yeah.
want me.
Yeah.
Why did you continue to pursue this?
In my mind, like I said, it was the biggest goal that I could reach to kind of tell myself, I've arrived as far as an improvement in my injuries. If I can share my story, which is a very emotional story, and for a while was very, very hard, and I still sometimes get emotional telling pieces of it. If I could get on a stage and tell people that and put that out into the world, all of the personal details, the mental illness and getting addicted to pills. And, the TEDx talk didn't end up including all of that, but I do share that story. That's part of my platform. And, I think it's so important that people don't just see the highs. There isn't only the highs. There was a whole journey to get here. And even if you don't go through like a traumatic accident like I did, people never see the journey. They never see like the behind the scenes. They see the highlights, the social media reel, So for me, it was just so important to have that platform, knowing that I could help people, across the world who could, watch this TEDx talk and think, wow, I've been through X, Y, and Z, and she did it and I can do it. And, so that was, to me, that level of importance of spreading that message and having a bigger platform just kept me going with it. Were there points where I was super depressed and angry, and like, why did they reject me again? And like, this just, TEDx's have different themes. And sometimes my talk was right on theme. And I was like, how can I not get this? I had those moments, but I still kept going.
How many times did you apply?
I couldn't even tell you. If I had to guess over the 5 years, I would say at least 25 to 30 TEDx talks in different places across the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
I talk about that all the time as long as you don't give up, you have a shot.
Yeah.
And especially, in the industry, any industry, but in sales, right? So it's selling, it's whether it's mortgages or insurance or real estate, and careers and building a career and building a brand takes a long time.
It does. And, like I said, we do it with celebrities and stuff. Sometimes there'll be actors or actresses that work for years. We don't hear of them. And then they're in a blockbuster and they're on Good Morning America or something. And somebody will say, oh my God, you're an overnight success. And you'll hear them say something like, I'm not an overnight success. I've actually been doing this for 10 or 15 years. This is just the first time anyone's seen me, and it's that's a bigger platform, obviously, because they're very much in the public eye. But with all of us, nobody sees all that. Nobody sees the building, people just see, like I said, the highlight reel.
Right. I love that meme of the iceberg. You can see the top of the iceberg and then there's the water and you can't see beyond that because it's the dark water, but you see all these jagged edges.
Yep.
And that's all life happening every day. And it's people seem, sometimes forget that. And social does allow for people to forget that. Because
social does. But as you said, I put a lot out there. So I feel like I try to put out like a realistic view. When things are going badly or I don't get something, I do put that out there too. But a lot of people don't, so there's definitely people that have a very curated, here's me and my family and aren't we great and we're happy every day. And like I remember when the pandemic started and I don't have kids, my husband and I are at home with our dogs, and obviously like everyone else we were here like 24/7 together. And I feel like sometimes I took people aback because I would catch up with somebody I hadn't talked to for a few months. Oh, how's it going? How are you managing during COVID and all this? And I'm like, boy, we are ready to kill each other because we're both working from home, because then you had these people on social who would say, isn't this great? I'm with my spouse every day. I'm reconnecting with kids and family. And there were parts of that. Like, I'm happy, the parents out there who had kids from home from college and they had their family in the house. And I'm sure there were times that was great, but everyone has those moments where it's like, you're ready to kill each other at home. And some people were just trying to stay the whole time as though everything was perfect. So I was definitely one of those people where I'm like, we are going to kill each other. I don't know how much longer this can go on. Like, I need to do this. Definitely. My husband, I think he would say the same thing. But I think, there's the reality of being together 24/7 that I think added to all the things we're talking about the last couple of years, whether it was what I'm laughing about or, a very serious other side of that coin is there's a lot of people who are single who were, homebound alone. And there's a lot of issues that came as a result of that, about not being connected, not being able to see people, having their family far away, not being able to fly to see them, and dealing with that isolation, you know?
Yeah. A lot. And a lot of mental illness coming from it today,
Yeah, absolutely.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's another thing that, having to be dealt with. I love what you said about, and that's something I'll tell you about a little bit later, but just knowing that there is a story behind the story, and it always isn't a pretty story, right? It's
Right.
and revealing that, right? And the power in the reveal of it.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
So I know you're doing a pageant.
I am.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So a friend of mine last year did the same pageant. She's also a lawyer, a former lawyer, also a speaker. And so I got involved with it. I never considered myself the kind of person that would do a pageant. But, since my accident, I have tried a lot of things I never thought I'd try. I think when you go through something like that and you have that second chance of life, you're like, why not? Right. So to be given an opportunity like this, I went through an interview process, and now I'm representing Pennsylvania in as Mrs. Classic Pennsylvania Universe. And basically, classic means over 40. And one of the reasons I wanted to get involved is because a big part of the competition and the judging is about your platform, your charity, and your message. So, that's all what I'm about. So to me, that was just a great way to spread that more, have this like fun new opportunity, something out of the box that I hadn't done, and the networking, of course. And then there's the other aspect of it, which is like a real pageant. So I have evening gown, and thankfully I have a category called resort instead of bathing suit because it's over 40. So you have a choice, do I want to walk the stage in a bathing suit and heels and nothing else? And I was like, no, I don't. So so, but there is aspects of it that's a full on pageant. But in any case, it's a great, it's going to be a great way to spread my message, have a bigger platform, meet a lot of amazing women from around the world, and do some appearances, work with some great nonprofits, and share the causes that I care about. And I will go and compete in July in Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw your picture that you picked. It's so pretty.
Thank you so much. Yeah, they gave me well, my friend who got involved, she gave me some names of some pageant photographers. I have some photographers around here that I work with for, corporate headshots and branding for my business that are fantastic. And I thought I would just go to one of them. And then, of course, since she's been through the pageant, she said, no, you got to go to one of these good pageant photographers that do the pageant makeup, and they understand what the judges are looking for and all of that. So I did that, and I think it turned out great. It was a super fun experience.
That's awesome. It's awesome that you could do something like that today, right? At being over 40 years old.
Yeah, I'm going to be 50 next year. So, I mean, for me, like to do this in the last year of my 40s, to not be like a size 02 or 5'10", and, the typical kind of pageant look that we think about, and be able to represent at my age, my body type, my experience, for me, it seems like an opportunity to just show everybody that like it's never too late. When I was a little girl watching these pageants, I would never think somebody like me could compete in something, and here I am. So
Wow. It talks about, pursuing your dreams and never, ever, ever, ever giving up on them. And
yes,
really and being able to visualize and keep going and keep dreaming and keep hoping. And sometimes we know all that is really, really hard to do.
definitely.
But you have to remember that if somebody else did it, you can do it. And if nobody else do it, you can still try to do it, right?
Absolutely. And you mentioned a minute ago, mental illness and how that's gotten worse during the pandemic. So, I mean, even with the, just keep going and don't give up, and you can do it. And I'm all about it. But I also want to be honest and say, after what happened to me, that also took me 6 years of therapy with
Mm.
psychiatrists, psychologists, trauma specialists, medication, all kinds of things that I went through to get to more of the place I'm at now. So, I mean, for everybody out there that is going through something, has gone through something, and maybe not dealt with it, or maybe they were fine before the pandemic and now they're not in a good place mentally, I'm not going to sit here and say, find a way to stay positive and pull yourself out of it. If you feel like you need help, get help. You know, we can't do everything
Absolutely.
ourselves. We think that we can. I remember when my accident first happened and I was like, I'm a strong person. I can do anything I want. I can get through this. I can will myself to be better, but I couldn't, you know? So I think that's something that's also important to recognize.
Yeah. It's important to recognize soon too.
Absolutely.
Sooner than later. And you know what is always good too? I always say a good long walk and run, half walk, sweating. Sweating is always good. It helps our endorphins to
Yeah.
naturally.
For me, that's
feel.
boxing, but I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, I think whatever you gravitate towards, for me, that's boxing. But
Oh yeah, boxing. I don't run. I'm a walker.
Yeah.
And I love boxing, but I haven't done that in years. And
I haven't done it for a while. My place I did for 5 years classes closed permanently during the pandemic. And I've dabbled in a couple other places that just haven't given me the same community, but I do love it. I have to get back to it.
It's a lot of fun. It's a great workout. And I don't know. I remember doing it I worked with this guy and it was really pretty. It was intense to the point where I couldn't breathe. And he's like, put your arms up. And by putting your arms up, you were able to breathe better.
Right.
Did you know that?
I did know that.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. So your platform for the pageant, what charity are you supporting?
The charity that I'm supporting for the pageant, which there'll be an online voting component. So you'll start to see me do some posts about the charity, and then people can, I think it's like a minimal kind of donation you would give for the online voting, and then the proceeds of that go to the charity that each contestant picks. So I'm working with what used to be Career Wardrobe, which is now the Wardrobe. So for people out there that don't know what that is, you know, they're an organization that helps people in transition, you know, with clothing insecurity and also skills to get back into the workforce. So whether they've lost their job, they were judiciously involved and are getting out of a prison situation or whatever the case may be, they help them with interview outfits. They help them with work wardrobes, even casual wear. You know, sometimes people are coming out with nothing, but they also do a bunch of seminars and programs, resume writing, you know, free headshots, job skills, you know, LinkedIn help, you know, whatever it is that people need. And so I've worked with them for probably over 20 years as a volunteer in different capacities. I did join their board last year, and I'll be honest and say I've been a failed board member because, you know, we always take on more than we think. You know, we think we can take on more than we actually can take on. So I'm a dedicated volunteer, but I was a failed board member. But in any case, it is a cause that's very close to my heart. And I've done, you know, speaking for them and fundraising and different things over the years. So that is the charity that I'm supporting. And really the main reason for that is because I've seen what comes of people gaining confidence through having their self-image improved. And self-image obviously can be part of the clothing, but it's also the self-image and confidence from within that they get going through, you know, the different programs at the Wardrobe. And I feel like with what I do in my personal business, I get to see kind of those aha moments with people when they, you know, are more comfortable with networking, or their LinkedIn looks great and it helps them get a job, or they come back to me and advice I gave them helped them and they have those moments. It's great, you know, so it kind of all ties in for me, and that's what I decided to support.
That's awesome. Are they they're national organization?
I don't believe they are national.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're just okay.
Yeah.
It's just local to
I
Philadelphia.
should know the answer to that, but I'm pretty sure they're just local.
Okay. I used to, back in the day when it was Career Wardrobe, they got a lot of clothes for me.
Oh, good.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah, anything from a size 6 to 14.
Yeah.
You know, I had a closet full of those different clothes. I had to get rid of them.
Yeah, I give them stuff all the time. And I think my best moment was when I started my business and I gave them all my suits. Because when I stopped practicing law, like, you know, obviously there are a lot of jobs where, you know, dress codes have changed over the years and things are more acceptable. Being a lawyer isn't one of them. You know, when you go to court, you have to look a certain way in a suit in front of judges. Like that's what the expectation is. And personally, I hated suits. I found them boxy and confining. I didn't think they were flattering. I was not as confident in them as I am in all the dresses you see me in now.
Yeah.
So that was like a great moment for me to be able to go through my closet, give them all my suits and think I never have to deal with this again. But somebody who has a nice corporate job is going to get all these beautiful suits.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So before we wrap it up today, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Any books that you would recommend that like really resonated with you or changed your life that you want to share with our guests?
Absolutely. There are two of them, and I mention them in a lot of my talks. One is by Adam Grant. He is the youngest tenured professor at Wharton, who also has a psychology background. He's written a couple bestsellers. And his books are all good, but the one that I want to mention is Give and Take, which is his first book. And it's all about relationship building and networking. So I would highly recommend that. And then the second one is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And, it basically shows you how to take micro steps to incorporate things in your life so that they become second nature and you don't have to think about them. The way at the beginning we were talking about how to incorporate networking follow-up, to make it so that it's second nature, the way you get up and, brush your teeth and wash your face and shower, to make things that you don't have to think about so they become part of your routine. So I think that book is really helpful. He also has a great website where you can sign up for daily tips, to help you form your habits. And so Atomic Habits is the other one I would say.
Awesome. I love that book. And the first one I haven't read, so I'll have to read that. And then, so that's one thing you just got awarded to be an instructor at Wharton University. That is a prestigious honor.
Thank you.
So you'll be teaching starting in the fall semester?
Yes, I'll be teaching starting in August. I'll be teaching first year business communications. And so, that was a tough interview process as well. And, it kind of did bring me back to some of what we talked about because, I do struggle with memory. I love speaking. I'm comfortable with it, but a lot of times it's more from the heart, off the cuff. I kind of know the topics I want to talk about. But for the Wharton interview, they had a very specific set of facts that you had to do in a mock interview in front of a very serious panel. And I really wasn't sure how it would turn out. So I'm very proud. I'm very happy that they call it a Wharton lecturer instead of like an adjunct or anything. So I will be starting in the fall and I can't wait.
That's awesome. Huge congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
And what, you just decided one day you wanted to apply, or how did that come
No,
about?
actually, they had approached a friend of mine who had been teaching at Temple, and she has some personal things going on. So they asked if she would has anybody she would recommend, and she said, "Do you want to apply for this?" And so that was through networking. If I didn't have this friend who said, "Do you want a shot at this?" That they wouldn't. It's not like they came calling themselves. Obviously, then I had to go through the interview process, but to have that in, whether it's for a job or an opportunity, that's the best part about networking. We can't find everything ourselves, and you try to stay as visible as possible, but you can always use help from your network and your friends.
Wow, that's so awesome. It goes back to the beginning of why purposeful networking and how it works and how important it is. How important it is as not even just for entrepreneur, but just in general in life, right? For everybody.
Definitely. For everybody. Yes. Yep.
It's
My husband just went through this. He left his job after almost 25 years, and he now just got a job finally, and he's been looking. And this is really the first time in his life he's had to look. So this is the first time he started really having to network. And of course, I've been telling him over the years like how important it was not just when you're job hunting to do all of this, to, have a presence on LinkedIn and cultivate your network and everything. Bless you. But now he finally gets it. Now he's like, oh, I see the importance of this now.
Yeah,
Stuff really works,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So any podcasts that you recommend that you love? I don't know. Some people love podcasts, some don't.
Yeah, I'm not a big podcaster. When I am in my car, I tend to listen to like loud music and sing along with it. But Adam Grant has a great podcast. So I would definitely say if you're into podcasts, look at his podcast. Another person I love that I know has a good podcast is Gretchen Rubin. She wrote a series of books, one of which is The Happiness Project.
Yes.
So she has a great podcast.
The Happiness Project. That was a great book.
Yes.
She did this project over a year time.
Yep.
That's a good book to go back and read, actually. I read it probably a decade ago-ish. And I don't remember everything I read. I don't know about you, but I have books I have to reread them all the time.
There are books I want to reread all the time, because I feel like you take something different from them. And particularly now that we're post-pandemic, I feel like something like The Happiness Project we'd go back to and probably see things differently than we saw before.
Right. And we change as humans and evolve. So we're going to see things and get things from it that we wouldn't have gotten originally because we're not the same person that we were 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time today. I loved spending time with you on the Be the Solution podcast. Keep being the solution for your community. You do an amazing job. You're an amazing woman, and best of luck to you in the pageant this summer. I know that you're going to do a great job. So, cheers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation, and everyone have a nice weekend.